I'm doing another video where I sit and talk to you guys or kind of vent my emotions about shit that I'm dealing with, kind of. And this is another video where I have a script with all my thoughts and ideas right off to the side here. I'm gonna be doing some like skincare and makeup, or at least trying to, while I'm saying this. Is it slanted? And I just have this as a mirror, like I don't have a real mirror. In this video, I'm going to be addressing a hard conversation I've had to have with a lot of my loved ones. Well, I won't say a lot, but with enough for me to be upset about it. To be honest, one would be enough. I think I may make more videos on the topic of struggling to hold your loved ones accountable when they have separate perspectives than you that come from places of ignorance or intolerance. Perspectives that invalidate different parts of yourself. It has happened to me more than once with various different aspects of my identities and with different people that I have grown to love and care about. Who knows if I have the bandwidth for multiple videos of this type, but I probably will. I probably do. Depending on the space or the safety of the space, I don't correct or speak on my identities with my gender. And so people ask, like, why don't you correct yourself? I had a similar conversation in regards to picking your favorite color. So that's the analogy I'll use. So someone asked me, like, oh, what's your favorite color? And I say, my favorite color is black. Or someone might say, my favorite color is white. In response, people say, that's not a color. And after you've had that experience over and over again, you pick it back up. And so you're just like, yellow. Is the absence or totality of colors no longer counting as a color? That doesn't count. Some people don't count it as a color, some people do. And instead of arguing or trying to figure out why, it's easier to just pick a different color and lie to the world so it's more digestible and understandable to them. It gets tiring having to explain yourself over and over to people who will never agree with you. You know, like, your favorite color is black or your favorite color is white. These are just the colors I like. Why is there a wrong answer or a debate over what my favorite color is? All this to say, I personally identify as being agender. Some people are probably like, what does that mean? Each individual has their own experience with gender, so they might say different things. Some questions, when it comes to the general blanket terms, you're asking, myself personally, your favorite auntie, am I non-binary? Am I trans? The terminology and labeling is a bit wishy-washy for me. Some will say, yes, I'm non-binary, and some will say, yes, I'm trans, while others will say no. Because labels and definitions are used to help people understand themselves and to grow and build community, other people might put a label on me that I don't necessarily put on myself, and vice versa, just to try and understand you better. I keep flipping between saying I and you statements, but please note this entire video is like my perspective, my experience, and what I'm speaking on. I'm not speaking for other people, especially not other people that identify as agender or identify under the umbrella terms. I'm just speaking for myself as I've been. I'm not like a label person. I just say agender. They can fit that into whatever umbrella term they find for themselves, whatever makes sense for them to be able to understand and digest my gender for themselves, to create their own perceptions and perspectives about me. Sometimes I say I'm non-binary because I am not conforming to the traditional gender binary. I'm not nitpicky over the labeling because I don't need that to build my community, or I don't need that to understand myself better because I have a general idea. Now, what does it being agender mean? Literally, it just means without gender. Latin root words, if you ever had to do those in school. A is not negative without, and gender is gender. I guess the follow-up question is, what does being agender mean to me? For me, gender is a social construct. The roles of gender and alleged internal battles of femininity and masculinity aren't real to me and causes me discomfort when they're forced on me by others and even by myself. I feel like this is a hard thing to explain because it's just in my mind, so I get it, but putting it to words for others to explain, to decide whether they agree or disagree or find a relation to it, can be a bit difficult. I don't get... Is there no chapstick in here? I get upset when I'm characterized exclusively and limitedly as one or the other, as in man or woman. This is old as shit. I think this is empty. I view them interchangeably and through other lenses. Attributes of human existence and expression exist beyond a binary or dichotomy in my view of myself, in my personal perspective and experience with my gender. I want to specify again that my individual experience and perspective on gender is not how I perceive or categorize others necessarily. I love having conversations about gender and how other people view it and themselves and the spectrum and the complexities or simplicity of it. However, the general simplification of these categories that have sorted things is too small and minimizing of my views of the world, and thus applying it to me feels offensive. I am not feminine or masculine. I'm not man or woman, I just am. I exist as both and neither, because the roles or the definitions of gender aren't able to be split so evenly into these categories into my mind. There isn't a real separation in these gender expressions. It's so muddy, so I'm existing beyond that because it's not, I don't want to say not real to me because I don't want it to diminish other people's identities or their attachment to these expressions of themselves. In terms of pronouns, I use any and all, but more specifically, I typically use the she series, he series, and they series. To be honest, I'm not super educated on all the list of pronouns. I just wait till someone tells me what theirs are, and if they are a unique one that I haven't heard before, I just use it exclusively for that person. But if people want to use that for me, go ahead. I don't take any offense to any of them at all, and I don't have a strong preference because I am women presenting. People tend to use she, her the most, and that's just something I've noticed. I feel like the truest one is all of them, but the easiest one to use for me, if you're comfortable or confused, is just they, them. Sorry for the lack of continuity, because I was having issues with my camera. I'm trying to pick a color for my eyebrows because I don't have a black, so I'm trying to choose the darkest brown. I am comfortable in the body that I was born in, at least to the extent of anybody who's dealing with their own insecurities and struggles with self-image in general, but I don't believe that I was born in the wrong body necessarily. There are moments in life where I wish certain attributes of my body fit better into either side of the binary, but this is less of a reflection of my comfort with myself and more about my stress on my perception of myself by others. And I reflect on things that were like gender affirming, I guess, when I was younger, like being called a tomboy, even while still wearing frilly dresses and embracing femininity in that sense, being mistaken for a boy when I'd go out with my family. I hear stories about how no matter how femininely I was dressed up, I could be wearing big pink dresses. I had my ears pierced when I was 2 months old, and people would still be like, oh, he's so handsome. I don't know, I love those stories growing up, or all the comments with everyone in my family being like, oh, Lonnie's a whole man, and I've been saying that since I was young. I would find such comfort in that and pride. In my gender journey, I try and take a lot of time to reflect on how much is it my separation from gender in general, and how much is it like internalized misogyny that I'm dealing with and wanting to be like not like other girls and those kinds of things. So I've had a lot of that internal battle back and forth. Though either side of the binary can be used against me as an insult by labeling something as demeaning when it's hyper feminine or feminine in general and pointing that towards me as an insult, and likewise with being called a man when it was an insult. I've been insulted by both in different times. I also understand that gender is something very real and serious to other people. I know that it's important and reflective of their identities and their experience with life in and of itself and their expression of their self. And I know that at times expression says one thing and identity says another. And it's a very fun experiment to play with and to find comfort in for yourself and in your own skin. When I say that I'm a gender or I exist beyond or outside of this binary, or I don't ask these labels onto me, I understand the importance, the prevalence of it in other people's identities and other people's expressions of themselves. I know I cannot expect the world to be a safe space. I understand that. And I lived through that and experienced the unsafety of the different spaces I'm in schools, in professional settings. There are crude remarks and subtle jabs that push me further inside myself, not outwardly expressing or claiming my identities to others. My existence in and of itself is resistance and defiance, but I don't have the energy for that, so I often will bottle up the various parts of myself until I can release it when I'm home and when I'm safe. These comments are the default, and I understand that, and it's disheartening and unsettling, but it is also just like the fact of life. When I am the minority, it is terrifying to speak up. I've stumbled upon the realization that I will never be accepted. Realizing this comes with the realization that I will not be validated by others, which I don't need, but it still sucks. But I have to work through that on my own. to discover and embrace comfort for myself as opposed to reflected by others. My perception is my individual experience, and I cannot force that or expect that from other people. However, in my circles, like in my friendships, those should be safe spaces. I consider those, or desire or yearn for those, to create them to be safe spaces for myself. I've existed in friendships where I was just surviving. My identities in general were the butt of jokes. I would even make them sometimes just as terms of survival, to fit in, to be acknowledged, to try and hide my hurt or stifle my hurt, stifle the pain. And people would make the joke, and sometimes it was with knowledge of my identities and sometimes without. And it's not something I want to continue in my adult life. I have worked to build what I think is a safe and accepting community. So one-off comments are really jarring now. I used to let a lot of things slide when I was younger, which I'll probably talk in other videos when I talk about other issues with my identities. Not issues with my identities, difficulties and experiences I've had, various aspects of my identities. And some of these one-off comments, my friends just saying ignorant things in terms of gender, these are all examples of comments I've heard from friends that shatter my safe space. It makes me want to ask them, what spaces are you in to ever have to identify yourself in this way, to ever have to make this declaration? And what makes you think speaking to me about it in this negative way or in this ignorant way that you have the same space to do that with me? Sometimes they just aren't aware of my identities or my stances, but it's like super jarring because I try and surround myself with people who understand, have compassion, empathy, and a willingness to learn, even if they have ignorance in different things. And I want to shake them and tell them that you have the freedoms and privileges to identify as the general terms without prefixes or adjectives or inclusive language. If you're uncomfortable with being called cis or a birthing person, that is for you to deal with on your own. Your lack of wanting to exist under an umbrella term or the use of inclusive language is your personal issue. That doesn't mean that when I refer to you, I will intentionally describe you with these inclusive language terms. If you have a preference, I'll acknowledge it and respect you and your individual thoughts. If you ask me not to use something, I will try my best not to use it, and I'll respect that choice. But you're making that decision also allows me to see your views and make my own decisions on how I will allow myself to exist around you. Like I said, I understand it's not my place to expect acceptance from the majority or even knowledge and complete understanding, but from my friends, the community I built to feel safe, I do hold the expectation of tolerance and a willingness to learn. When it isn't met, I'm disappointed, especially when I'm being met so abrasively when trying to start or lead a conversation to explain and correct their ignorance. When they seem to have no interest in learning, as I work to scramble to try and salvage my feeling of safety and connection to these people after they say something jarring that pulls me out of my safety and denies me of the comfort I once had. And that's also why it makes it more difficult to have educational conversations. I know my guard has to be up as I'm in defense of my being. My rest and comfort is gone. In terms of safety, I just mean comfort or knowing that you're in a space where you can be yourself without harsh judgment or critique. And that's just speaking about when someone's having a one-off comment. But arguing with transphobes in general, or when they have consistent comments that are not as inclusive as you thought it was, I am biased and sensitive because these are aspects of my own identity. I am passionate and exhausted to explain my existence because people are angry and deny my very existence because they don't understand it. They denounce my being because they don't understand it. I will exist whether they understand it or not, but fighting for and defending your existence, it's exhausting. You don't know if you're safe to speak, no matter who you're talking to. There is nuance and politics attached to you just by being yourself. People hate you, are disgusted by you, wish death and negativity on you because they don't understand you. And people don't actually care to want to learn or understand because hating is easier. It's unsafe to explain because they don't usually have open minds to listen. Even if they're not viewing you with the previously mentioned extremes, they will argue against you because they aren't listening. I'm really just throwing shit on my eyes. Y'all know I can't do makeup. Any point you make is devalued or makes no sense. They speak in circles even after your explanation, and they label your explanations as meaningless and are redundant in their rhetoric to denounce you. So it's just like this cycle. If they're not going to listen to you or take in what you're saying to open their mind to new perspectives, they're not going to learn anything, so they're just going to keep repeating back the same things. Even if you're giving them clear facts or clear explanations or just your clear heart and feelings, they will simply deny it because they don't care and it doesn't make sense to them because they don't want it to make sense to them. They don't want to actually learn. If they cared, your words would stick. They may not agree with everything you say, but they would be open to it. If they cared, they wouldn't be seeking to find fault in your explanations, but truth. But they expect you to continue to explain everything they don't understand, but it's because they want to pick it all apart, to debate you, to deny you, not to listen and understand you. And frankly, it's not my job. And fuck you for asking. Demanding I explain when you are capable of researching and learning yourself. You have the privilege not to care, and the privilege for the research of my identities to be an inconvenience to you deemed not worthy. Sometimes you'll have these debates with friends, and it's exhausting to you, but they will speak to you, and as you're trying to explain to them the things that they're saying are transphobic, or just saying that they're hurtful, they'll be like, I'm not transphobic. If someone tells you that you hurt them and your first thought is to defend yourself and deny your feelings, then you might not be as open-minded as you thought. You're upset with the label that is being placed upon your words. And again, the label being placed on your words half the time and not you yourself. But you're upset with this label because you're incapable of separating your words from who you are. And that is a you problem. And because it is your problem, it is your job to work to de-escalate that mindset, to work to educate yourself, to work to apply the effort that it takes to correct that type of ideology, and to expand your perspective to be open to listen to someone else. Your defense is, I'm not transphobic. This is not an adjective to describe who I am, but that doesn't take away from the fact that the words you spoke reiterate negativity, and this negativity is relative and indignant of whatever ick or ism you are manifesting through your words, albeit transphobia, racism, ableism, You saying like, oh, I'm not transphobic doesn't take away from the shit that you said. People need to work better to understand the difference between intent and impact. They need to work to understand that the words they speak can be indicative of prejudices and implicit biases that they may not be aware of within themselves. And it is work to understand the privileges one holds and what that means for other people and how they should be interacting with them. No one owes you kindness, sympathy, empathy, understanding. No one owes that to you. But you have to understand that if you don't provide that, then you are going to be associated with these labels of transphobic, racist, ableist, because that is what your words are expressing. That is what your actions are expressing. That's what your ideology and rhetoric are expressing. If you truly care enough to want to stop hurting them, it is the work for the people that have the implicit biases and prejudices that are discriminating against another group to correct their own behaviors, vocabulary, and these ideas. It is not the job of the person in the minority, of the person in the oppressed group, of the person being harmed to teach you and explain to you why it hurts them. When someone places a boundary with you about how they do not want to deliberate and debate and argue their very fucking being, you should respect that. If you cared as much as you say that you do, you would take it upon yourself to do the research on your own, educate yourself, and not emotionally, socially, spiritually drain the person you are insulting. And I get wanting to know the answers, but again, it's not the job of the person that you hurt to provide them. You are more appalled by the label that is being added onto the words that you said than you are upset about the words themselves. What you don't understand is how the words you said are more painful and pungent than the label associated with the prejudices you are expressing. You're on the defense. How dare you call me transphobic? How dare you call me racist? How dare you call me da-da-da-da? I'm a good person and those people are bad. What you fail to realize, what you say can still have connotations relative to these biases. You are speaking from a place of privilege, from a place as a part of a majority. You could be a part of the oppressed or minority groups and have internalized hate or distrust or discrimination against the group you even belong to. These types of ideologies, these perspectives are forged into our minds and continue to be reiterated and established throughout our lives and the media we consume and others' experiences, because the world is going to perceive issues, words, and conversations from the perspective of the majority. And as we continue to perpetuate these ideas that are harmful to the minority group, to the oppressed groups, then we are enhancing and enforcing those oppressive systems and ideas. And that is why what you said is transphobic. It is because it is contributing to these perspectives, perpetuating hateful ideologies that already are consistent within societal norms. If you think belittling me or vilifying me for calling out your cruel, toxic, dehumanizing behavior is the proper response, instead of introspection and working to grow, then you never will grow. You've plateaued. Explaining how or when you've done something wrong or harmful as a call to education, growth, and learning shouldn't elicit a defensive response. And I mean specifically when it's not when people are just trying to call people out just to call people out and they're talking out their ass. I mean, like, for genuine growth, education, and learning, it makes sense not to want to be associated with something cruel, especially when it goes against your values. But denying the cruelty and weight of your actions and words, the lack of accountability for the pain you may cause, should be just as outside your moral code as association with the label. I am not all-knowing or the most woke and knowledgeable person alive. I've had to do the work to undo my own fair share of biases and internalized phobias and isms and misunderstandings. And I continue to put the work in. I research to grow and understand because I care to know, because I want to continue to learn, to continue to be better. I can think of plenty of examples of crazy shit that I have said or crazy shit that I have let slide that I wouldn't dare reiterate today. But it's not just because I don't want to be associated with bad terms that name me as an asshole. It's because I don't want to hurt others or hurt myself or deny myself, which obviously plays a role and is my own bias. It leads me to want to learn because it impacts me directly, but I also continue to keep an open mind because I don't want to be embarrassed and look stupid for speaking on things I don't fully understand. I allow for people to explain things to me and change my mind, either strengthening my original perspective or broadening it. But I get called out on my bullshit. In the moment, it does not feel good, obviously. Luckily, this approach has allowed me to have things explained to me in the moment or pointed to other resources so I can learn for myself. It creates a safe space so people know they aren't arguing or defending their existence, but rather speaking to explain what I've done wrong. If someone were to say to me, "What you said is transphobic," my first thought would be, "What did I say?" And not, "What did you just call me?" For me, it's more painful to know that I'm hurting others than for others to describe the words I said as hateful. It's difficult to have these types of conversations. It's hard for the person insulted to remain calm and have the patience to explain, especially if the situation is deemed to be more of a fight than a lesson. And nobody likes being wrong or hurting others. Nobody wants to be associated with a harsh label like transphobe. But in order to deny the labels, you have to deny the rhetoric. To hold yourself accountable, you have to pull yourself out of the insult of the harsh label and into the mindset ready to understand why the label is being placed on your words, thoughts, actions, etc. But not everyone is ready or willing to hold themselves accountable, to learn and understand, to view the world with an open mind and empathetic heart. As I say, ignorant is bliss. Sometimes it's easier to just be like, no, I don't want to change my mind. No, I don't want to open it up. Like I said earlier, nobody owes anyone accountability or kindness, in all honesty. But I have people around me who claim to be these things and hold these things as values, yet lack accountability and willingness to learn. They want to be perceived this way without putting in the actual effort and work to truly hold these attributes. And when I say these attributes, I mean kindness, accountability, and an open mind. I like to think that I hold space in my relationships to feel safe and comfortable addressing issues, and this has been built over years after struggles with communication and honesty have put wear and tear on my emotional connections with people, and that's at fault of myself, is what I'm saying. So I am intentional in wanting to create space and feelings where someone can tell me they feel like I've done wrong or hurt them, and I expect the same space to be shared vice versa. I'm sure this would be better with liner, but I don't have a liner and I don't know how to do it. And I expect the same space to be shared vice versa, and usually it is. Recent conversations with people I love, as well as reflecting on some older conversations, has demonstrated that they may not have that space for me. It's a lot to do with pride and a difference in priorities, and it's been painfully eye-opening to realize. That's pretty much all that I have to say, but I didn't finish my look, so I'm trying to think of more words to say. I was too focused on talking to actually get my shit done. I try hard not to hold it against people when I have these difficult conversations, because I know that I'm hurting, and I know that not everyone knows everything, and I don't expect everyone I'm friends with to know everything. I just expect them to be open and kind, and sometimes I make the false assumption that we have the same ideas about things, that we are on the same page when we're not, because we may share common thoughts and opinions about different perspectives that I find overlap in that they don't find the overlap. Like, the lash always come out better on one eye as opposed to the other. Long story short, it's okay to call people out on their shit, and you can't always expect them to be accepting of being called out. In return, they can't expect you not to change your perspective on them. these conversations have changed my perspectives on people and altered how comfortable I am being open with them about different aspects of my life and my identities. And I know I already have difficulties with that in general, as most people do. I put this too low, but it's okay. When you've built up so many walls in general, as soon as people take away that safety net that you had built, that trust, it's really easy to turn back into a recluse and not share things with them. And if you want to keep them in your life, sometimes it just means limiting the things you can speak with them about, which sucks, but it's just a fact of the matter. Should I do a dark lip, light lip? Probably light, yeah. It probably looks like shit, but that was fun to do. Damn, I was looking for this. Why is this like not moisturizing? But yeah, thanks for listening to me vent and allowing me the space. Well, to be honest, it's my channel. I'm allowing myself the space. It was fun to do. It was nice. There will be more videos like this on different topics. I can taste it. It's kind of sweet. Well, hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to like the video if you liked the video. Subscribe if you want to subscribe and join the fam. Comment down below if you have something to say. Just like the video if you didn't like the video, or don't interact with this post because you're not obligated to do that. We're just two people on the internet on either sides of the screen who just happen to exist at the same time or in the same era where you can see this. Hope your mind is doing well. Hope you're feeling good. Hope you have a good day, night, evening, whatever time of day it is for you. Wishing you well, wishing you the strength, courage, and comfort and safety to have difficult conversations with your friends so that you're all able to grow together and learn together so you can just help be kinder and more open and empathetic and compassionate to the people and the world around you. Bless.